Welcome back to another episode of Griffin's History Rewind. I'm your host, Griffin Bond. Today we will be discussing Vichy France. Vichy France was created when Germany and France signed an armistice on June 22nd, 1940. In this armistice, France was divided into two sections. The north would be controlled by Germany, but the south would be a French state. Yes, this was a French state, but there was also heavy German influence. Left in charge of this southern part of France would be Marshal Henri-Philippe Pétain. Pétain was a former World War I hero for France. He was influential in the Battle of Verdun and showed great bravery in stopping the Germans in that battle. Following World War I, he would rise to power in both military and the political field. Pétain would show many similarities to Adolf Hitler during his reign as the leader of Vichy France. Vichy France would become the name of this government, the Vichy government, as a result of it being located in a town in southern France called Vichy. Now, Pétain had a similar idea to Hitler in that he wanted France to have a national revival. Pétain felt that the French people had become weak, and as a result of their weakness, lost to the invading Germans. Additionally, the Vichy government, similar to the Nazi government, had several anti-Semitic laws. Now, I would like to point out here that many of these laws were made originally by the Vichy government and not as if they were told to by the Nazi government. Some of these laws included that the Vichy leaders repealed a law that outlawed anti-Jewish rhetoric in the media. Along with this, the Vichy government wrote into law that property belonging to Jewish people could be taken by the government. Now, this was done by the Vichy French police. An interesting example to look at of more anti-Semitic laws created by the Vichy government involved the Nazi Germany government actually ordering the Vichy government to have all Jews register with the government and wear the Star of David. Now, the Vichy government would take it a step farther and ban Jewish people from various places in public. This is an interesting example because it shows, well, yes, the Nazi government did order that Jewish people had to register with the government and wear the Star of David. The Vichy government took it a step farther, and it shows, well, yes, there was this influence from the Nazi government. The Vichy government itself was incredibly anti-Semitic and went about doing things that the Nazi government did not order themselves. Vichy France was home to internment camps as well. Two of the largest camps were Drancy and Bouin-le-Roland. These camps typically served as the first location in which Jewish people would go before being shipped to concentration camps in Germany. These camps had awful conditions that were very similar to the concentration camps of Germany. In 1942, the Vichy government was ordered by the Nazi government to remove more than 14,000 Jewish people from their homes and to be taken to Velodrome d'Hiver. This operation was ordered on by the Germans, but it was done by the French police. Additionally, the French police took women and children, which was not involved in the order sent by the Germans. After arriving at Velodrome, the prisoners were sent to the aforementioned internment camps at Drancy or Bouin-le-Roland. After this, they were taken to the most brutal concentration camp in all of World War II, Auschwitz. Unfortunately, only 811 of the 14,000 Jewish people taken to Velodrome d'Hiver ended up surviving past the end of World War II. As the war would progress, in 1945, the Vichy government lost all of its diminished power. And Marshal Henry Philippe Pétain, who, as we mentioned before, was the leader of this Vichy government, stood trial for treason and was ultimately found guilty and given the death penalty. Now, Pétain's sentence was changed from death to life in prison, and he would go on to later die at the old age of 96 years old. Now, as we look back at Vichy France, historians want to point out that Vichy was a government that, while yes, influenced by Nazi Germany, also acted on its own in many anti-Semitic ways. Vichy France was made by the armistice that was signed in 1940 of French Free State. Yet, it did not act as a free state for all. Vichy France was a totalitarian regime run by Pétain, who, very similar to Hitler, blamed the Jewish people for France's demise. It is also interesting to note that it took until 1995 for France to accept the role it played in the horrors of Vichy France. Well, there are some on the far right who have ultimately denied the Vichy government's actions. The now president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has made it very clear that Vichy France was a terrible and horrific event. And that is going to do it for today's episode. Vichy France was and still remains one of the darkest times in all of French history.